fantastic. We have got a fantastic guest, just making sure we've got our audio there. That is all looking well. So yes, we have hypnotists from all over the world, from America, from Canada, Australia, Ireland, Yorkshire, England, London. Last week we had a fantastic French hypnotist on, and today it is no exception. We're bringing you expert stage hypnotists from around the world. Now, please do make sure to ask lots of questions, and it's interesting to kind of find out how different countries are dealing with, 1, stage hypnosis, 2, the pandemic, and 3, dealing with these things coming out. So please excuse my pronunciation, but I'll play the little graphic, and then on the other side of that, please welcome Erik Olkiewicz.
Hi.
There he is. Hi, Erik. How are you? How was the pronunciation first? Did I get it anywhere near right?
Perfect. It's Erik Olkiewicz. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm up here to take all your questions and just listen in on and exchanging ideas. Hypnotist, stage hypnotist.
Fantastic. So, yeah, we've got a couple of hellos as well. Jeff Benning says hello. Natasha Stanley says hey, and Natasha Stanley from a different account says hey. So we are streaming on Facebook and YouTube live at this moment. So whereabouts in the world are you?
Well, I'm in Stockholm, Sweden right now. You may not see it, but it's downtown Stockholm right behind me. I'm at this media place where I've been just interviewed on a podcast regarding hypnosis, and it's all good fun. So
yeah, we were just saying earlier, it's so bizarre as well. Podcasts becoming what they've become over the lockdown, people going virtual and Zooms. It's been a great chance for hypnotists such as yourself to really kind of get that message out there as well. There's a lot of people looking for guests on podcasts. There's a lot of people that kind of have that interest now more in the power of the mind. How have you found it with, I mean, literally we're going from one podcast. I think we had a 2-minute break before we kind of got you on as well. So it's nice that you're nice and busy. So how are you finding people's interest in that whole podcast phenomenon?
Well, it's really big, and it's like this. Before becoming a hypnotist and stage hypnotist, I used to work as a journalist, which means I learned what editors want and need for their audience. So, and as you as a hypnotist and others may already know, is that if you're a hypnotist, there's something intriguing and fascinating about our profession and what we can do. So, my background has led me to be interviewed in newspapers and magazines, and right now in a big podcast. So
it's such an interest. I'm always fascinated by what brings people, or what people did before stage hypnosis, and how it benefits or hinders their kind of progression within that. And really interesting. I think journalism is one of those that just gives you so many more steps ahead of the rest of the game, because like exactly what you said, you understand what journalists are looking for, you understand what's going to get attention, you understand what editors are looking for. So that's a really great way. So I can imagine you've got quite a lot of kind of positive feedback, some good column inches, some press on the back of that. What's the most interesting story you've been involved in?
Well, it all depends on as a hypnotist or as a journalist. As a journalist, I was in different countries and did stories on, from Los Angeles and London and different places. However, my specialty was human touch stories. But as a hypnotist, what is really fascinating is that media wants a few things. One is that they want to have the success stories, the person that has lost weight or stopped smoking, telling their story. The other one is the entertaining part, where media is looking for, can you hypnotize our intern, or have fun with this group of people, or they have the feature story. We tagged along this hypnotist and see what he did. Or it's what we know in sense of teaching this is how you improve your or optimize your performance or maximize your results, or how, or it's the portrait of the hypnotist teaching salespeople to become better salespeople. So these are the things. So I'm really happy here to meet you, and also learn from you, because I know from in the US and maybe in London or in Britain, hypnotists are kind of, even stage hypnotists are competing, so that the goes to the lowest bidder. It's not the same thing in Sweden. It's like 3 or 4 hypnotists in a country of 10 million, which means that I'm doing corporate gigs, and I can take charge a lot of money for those gigs, and there's no competition in that sense. The competition comes down to that people don't really know that there's a hypnotist to book.
It's a really interesting point, because with there not being that many hypnotists, what's the public perception like in Sweden about stage hypnosis?
It's the same thing here. It's the same thing here as in all the other. I'm
literally booking the flights as we speak.
No, it's like that. The people's perception of hypnosis is the same in Sweden as in other countries. Same thing, you can't hypnotize me, or can you hypnotize me to cluck like a chicken? I find that scary. You can. We would like to invite you to hypnotize our group at our company, but I don't think anyone will participate up on stage. It's the same thing. It's no difference. The only difference is that when I kind of polled the audience in the beginning who has never been hypnotized or seen a hypnosis show, most hands go up. No one has experienced it. So
it's interesting, because like here in the UK, I know when I'm doing shows now, exactly that time when I'm asking people who's seen a stage hypnosis show before, we have a generation now, especially in the UK, of people that haven't seen stage hypnosis shows. It kind of fell out of favor in the kind of late 90s, and a lot of people missed that. And so so it's interesting for, like you said, a country of 10 million with only 4 working stage hypnotists. My worry would be that people don't know what stage hypnosis is, but
So, but it's great to work, because finally people have the choice of, okay, so you have the motivational speaker, you have the magician, you have the mentalist, and now you have the hypnotist doing art stuff. So it's
and it's how it should be. I'm very much an advocate in stage hypnosis, especially being put in that kind of, it's a choice of entertainment rather than just the silliness of it. It is a profound experience, a stage hypnosis show. So what first brought you to stage hypnosis? What was your first experience of it?
I was so I'm from Stockholm, Sweden, the capital of Sweden, and in the mid-90s I went to the US to study for a semester at a college in Chicago. And one night there was a hypnotist performing at a college, and as they do, asked for volunteers, and I was one of the people who rushed up and wanted to be hypnotized. And I remember some bits from the show, laughing at a funny movie, thinking I have a small bird in my hand. I still remember it was yellow, but the feeling it left me with was twofold. Number one, I feel so calm. We went out that night and I was just like walking on clouds. Second was that I'd love to learn hypnosis. So one of the first things I did when coming back to Sweden was that I bought the book of Paul McKenna, The Hypnotic World of Paul McKenna. But it was a translation. And inside the book it says, from the translator, stage hypnosis is forbidden by law in Sweden. So I called up the translator and said, is that correct? And he said, yes. So I never pursued that. I thought, this is never, I love it, can't pursue it. And that was the thing. It might have been a misconception. that you have to seek some kind of I don't know what you call it, like, permission from the state to do it. But back then, no one had really applied. And then I pursued my journalism media career. And then about 12 years ago, I decided to, take a stab on hypnosis. And that's when I first started studying with a Swedish hypnotist, Fredrik Presto. And then I went over to study with Mark Savard and later Justin Trans, who's my mentor.
Yeah.
So I've really learned from the best people who do it professionally night after night. And if you're a new hypnotist, I believe that you really need to have training, because trying to figure it out on your own, it just takes too long, and you can't get that information from a book either. So
interesting that you said about what training with both Mark and with Justin. Through my kind of stage career, I think it's so important to keep learning different people's styles, different people. And it used to be very cliquey, and I think the pandemic has kind of shook a lot of that away. But it's so important to learn everything you can from as many people as you possibly can. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I don't know, Grant, about your background. So, and maybe it's for other people here who haven't known about you either. So what is your background? So I get to know you.
I mean, I refused to get into hypnosis as such. My mum was very much into hypnotherapy, and that's what she did. And I never said I would go into it. But as I grew up through life, it became very useful with various different businesses that I had, and then got fascinated by stage stuff as a way of overcoming a fear of public speaking. I mean, I've told this story a few times.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I wanted to get into doing training on the hypnotherapy side of things, but I thought I can't do that if I have a fear of public speaking. Did a charity show with a load of bikers, and never looked back. And ever since that moment, stage hypnosis has been my absolute passion. And it's so important to, like we said as well, to train from as many people as you possibly can. And even people, we have a few people here in the UK that some people slag off and say bad things about, but one of those people, is very knowledgeable and shares that. And another thing that I think is so important for new hypnotists is to go to shows, to volunteer for shows, to experience stage hypnosis. I see a lot of hypnotherapists coming through that are wanting to learn stage hypnosis in order to develop their business. And you go, have you been to a stage hypnosis show? And they're like, well, no, we've not been to a show. And I think one of the downsides to the YouTube generation that we have now is a lot of people's first experience with hypnosis or performance hypnosis is a YouTube video. And I do believe that seeing it on a proper stage with lighting, with the sound, is what makes it special. Now, don't get me wrong, I'll still work in a venue without that, but that's where stage hypnosis should be.
Yeah, and I believe, for me, I don't really have the luxury of seeing other hypnotists performing, since I'm the one in Sweden who do the most shows, but I've seen one or two of my colleagues perform. So but for me, it was just like seeing Mark Savard doing what he does, and just being in his class and picking up and pretty much picking his brain. Okay, what does he do there? Okay, how did he phrase that? And so going to the best, I believe it's the best way for me. It has been the best way for me.
Yeah, it's picking up those nuances, and it's looking for. I mean, for me, it's when I first started out, I just wanted to do comedy hypnosis shows.
Yeah.
And then when I wanted to start to take that in different angles and specialize the shows a little bit, you look for the person that's doing really well in that particular field and then learn from them. And again, when you change again, a few years ago, I was very interested in cruise ships. And again, found the guy that for me is the king of cruises. He hates it when I say that. And went to go learn with him. And you learn so many different things, because cruise ships can be very different from theatres and stage shows and venues. And so it's picking the brains and learning the knowledge and the shortcuts from the experts that have done it, which makes it kind of helpful. So what was your first show like? You've done the training, but you're out there for the first time getting out there.
Yeah, it's my thing. Well, the very first show was I did an NLP training. I had just learned like the basics from a 2-day training on just how to hypnotize. And there was this guy Richard at this NLP training that was really easy to hypnotize. So I took out like a sheet of paper and went online and said like, okay, what are skits that I could do, and then it's just like you do whatever you can, and it was a hilarious show. And then after taking formal training, I had my first show, and one girl just kind of went out when I hypnotized her, and then I understood that she had narcolepsy. Which means that she just falls asleep whenever. So it wasn't my skill, but that was, we all start small, and I think that's, if you're a beginning hypnotist, that's such a good thing to know that you didn't, and I and Natasha or Jason wouldn't start off on the big stages. Well, eventually we probably got there, but just hustling, having shows in my living room, or my first paid gig was it was a guy getting married. His friends brought me together, and I hypnotized one of the friends and others, one to think, to chat up, like his friend, and stuff like that. And then
the wedding hypnosis is something that's growing in popularity now.
Has really took that scene to wherever you can take it. So
Natasha you mentioned about skits. Then she says, I couldn't understand a word, but love the skit where you get them to go and hide.
Okay, so I have a hide and seek thing where I hypnotize them to be experts at hide and seek, but they can just hide in really obvious places where they're highly visible. It's not my skit originally, and but it's still like my final thing, and it always brings laugh. And this just was amazing, because one of the guys up on stage was a private party. He went and put a bin over his head in the corner, and this is the guy that that is CEO of a company. So not that company, because this was a private party. And but it's interesting to hear how different crowds differ, because I do quite a few corporate crowds, and so usually it's not the warmest. It's not usually the warmest room. It could be, but there's sometimes you come in and it's so much politics in the room, and you have to kind of have people do that, which means that I did a show. I've done a few shows where there are hardly any laughs, but maybe the show wasn't all that funny. Maybe it was such a small group. Maybe it was like in one where I hypnotized one of the people up on stage to not see her shoe, put her shoe in her hand, and had her walk around, but it was all silent. And then when I talked to people, they said, we just felt sorry for her. Who would have thought that? And it was just like too much for some people.
When you talk about corporates being cold, sometimes there was a restaurant being opened at the top floor of a building here in Yorkshire, And for the not the opening night to the public, but to celebrate it being finished, the architects and the solicitors that had designed the building put on this event. They'd booked me to do the show, but where the stage was, I'm not lying, there was a big, maybe 4 foot wide pillar that went from the floor to the ceiling. Now, I'm no expert, but I think that's not the place where you would put a stage by design.
No.
So I've come out, I'm doing the pre-talk, and everyone's really cool, everyone's lovely. And then I thought, I've got to make a joke about it. You know, for me, that's the elephant in the room. So I've gone, oh, you're the guys that are the architects, the designers responsible for this wonderful building. And they're all like, oh, yes, yes, yes. I went, well, whose bright idea is it to put this pillar in front of the stage? Which I thought was quite funny. It obviously was a bugbear for the room and lost the whole audience.
Wow.
Instantly.
Wow.
No volunteers. No show.
Wow.
Not interested. Literally, the room went silent, and I heard some lady at the back go, "How very rude."
Oh.
and that was a very well paid corporate show, and just lost them. And I'm like, wow. And that was I had a long time to fill after that. So that was difficult. But yeah, corporates are very different sometimes.
Yeah, and we all, and it's so interesting to talk about that, because this is, we as hypnotists, we put our best stuff online, but we all know that they don't always go that well. I had a show that was, I had really looked forward to it. I'm not going to mention any names, but they were like high profile people that people you'd be like, oh, I want to impress this group of people.
Yeah.
But it was the person who was celebrating his 50th birthday. He had, unknowns to me, said that, hey, bring booze to my party. That will be your present, pretty much. Which meant that, the first 2 speeches that were supposed to be, other people then came up and before me getting up on stage, it has been an hour, people are really drunk, and everyone was like high profile in the room. So it was like a really bad show. I'd had another show where the show, and this was, but I learned from this one. This was what I learned was like, I should have a checklist. This should be, this will, so that's, after that, I created my checklist. I had a different show, corporate. This time, it was the thing that I had never expected. I go up on stage, and it's so much. There's no light, so I can't really see the people out in the audience, and the light in my eyes is too sharp. And I didn't really, this was a few years ago, but I wasn't really expecting that one. So I'm like talking out to this darkness. So and one of those are the small things that it can make it or break it.
I mean, I think we learn most in our shows from those situations we don't expect. But when you take a show from a venue or from a pub or a club or on that level, once you then take it onto a big stage, when you've got follow spotlights on you, you don't realize how lonely it is. Like you said, you don't see the audience. You're performing to yourself, and it's very disorientating the first time. And like I said, you've got to learn these things, the hard way, or from someone that's walked that talk.
Yeah. So, and where I'm right now is that if you see my show, it's pretty much, Justin Trans gave me, as he does, he gave me his show to do. So it's pretty much his show that I do, but in Swedish. But it works because no one here has seen it.
Yeah.
But what I'm coming to now is a challenge that many people might know, is that how do I make another person's show my own? How do I develop my own style in this? And I put in a few, jokes that are my own, and I know they work. But coming up with new skits and other things and my own spin on it, and so that's actually my next big thing, is to see, like, how can I make this show really my own, but still, since my show, it works. You know,
Yeah.
it works. So you know, don't fix what's broken, but that's my next step.
Yeah. I think with the Richard Cole's just arrived. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
With the Facebook groups being what they are,
Mm.
there's a big push of some of the, I say the old school guys, but some of the people that are selling training to shout and scream at the newbies and shout about being original. I think with stage hypnosis, because it is still very unique in a lot of places and people haven't seen shows, for me, it's far more important for someone to develop a funny show that's theirs
Yeah.
and then become original.
Yeah, I think so too.
And yeah, start adding one or two skits that you tweak along the way. Whereas I saw and they will remain nameless forever. I saw a stage hypnotist that had done really, trained with some of the best.
Yeah.
But they started their career wanting to be original. And unfortunately, they've not developed the stagecraft. They've not developed all the other little things that make it work. And it's the audiences leave then having not had the best experience. So yeah, I think you get good at what you do and then you get original.
Yeah, and I see here, like Richard says, I love coming up with new skit ideas, and it would be really interesting to hear like how he does it, because I believe there probably is a formula. I haven't really searched that much, but when the person does A, that will happen. X will be Y, but I think there probably is one. What I like about, if you look at how Justin Trans and Mark Sward differ, is that Mark Sward is really big on making the suggestions funny.
Yeah.
And on the count of three, you'll realize, when you hear the next piece of music, the Mexican jumping beans in your feet become active, causing your feet to go 100 miles per hour into Irish jig, all those things.
Yeah.
So it's, even though if I say everything from start to finish, it's 3 minutes, and I've done my Swedish version of that, and it's not river dance, it's, you're the hip hop star kind of thing. But to make it my own, however, when you look at Justin's stuff, it's more straight to the point.
Yeah.
You're a goldfish out looking for food, it's going right there, because he's very much more on, and that's his style, and that's and he's and that's where I'm finding my own way.
Yeah, and I like the way Justin's emphasis on the beginning ritual of the show, the induction as such. That in itself is a skit in and of itself. It's very fascinating how he does that, which again is very unique. But yeah, I think you're right. Sometimes, and for me, it depends on the audience and the time that I've got. Sometimes I did a show a couple of weeks ago, and literally I've been told, right, you've got 40 minutes to do the show. So for that type of show, it is very much skit, direct. When I'm doing my own show, and I've got time to really kind of paint the lines and really develop it, then I can really develop it. But it's always good fun.
Yeah, but what I like about this one is that, since taking my training, I've had very few, talks. Just talking with stage hypnotists and exchanging ideas, because since when I was a journalist, there's we're journalists sitting together eating lunch together, then going for a walk with my best friend. We pick up ideas all the time, because we're such a close-knit group. And here I work with take ideas from the internet, or I develop stuff on my own, and that's why I really it's good to talk to you, because this is
it's how
a possibility for me to learn.
Yeah,
so.
And it's not that as well. It's sometimes, like, I mean, I suffer from this the same as everybody. You have an idea in your head, and you go through it in your head, and it's amazing. and then you verbalize it and you say it to another person.
Yeah.
And the moment you hear yourself say it, you go, what a stupid idea.
Yeah.
But then the other person goes, oh, I can kind of see where you're going. And it's how things are developed. I went clay pigeon shooting with another hypnotist, Jason Nobby Morgan, a great guy from Wales. And whilst we were clay pigeon shooting, we were bouncing off ideas for a show. And by the end of it, he'd got himself a fantastic idea for an amazing show. And Jason, if you're watching, I'm still waiting for you to put that show on, or I'm going to put it on. It was a really great, unique idea for a show. And I think that's what it is. I mean, it's where do we find those ideas for inspirations for what could a skit be?
Yeah, and this is good. No, I'm curious with you, Grant. What is the challenge for you right now? You know, if you would take like, this is the challenge for me. You know, is it the getting the gigs? Is it, you know, having the pay? Is it like certain parts of the show? Because then I can dive in with my thoughts. You know, for what I have.
I mean, for me, weirdly, I don't think getting bookings is a challenge. And it's I was speaking to a hypnotist that was at an event we did kind of summertime, and I've gone, if you want to get bookings, just knock on a door and go, I'm a hypnotist, I'd like a show, and just do that and you will get shows. In the UK, there's a lot of perception to kind of change that into getting the right type of bookings that I want for my show. Before the pandemic, I was very busy, but that's not necessarily, it was good for my bank balance. It wasn't necessarily good for my health. And the pandemic helped me kind of realize that it's not about doing every show and being out there every night. And don't get me wrong, I love being on the road. And so for me, it's about, my challenge at the moment is I'm wanting to, in the UK, kind of make stage hypnosis a little bit more formalized a little bit. Here we have, on one side, we've got the hypnotherapists, which is all very fluffy and nice. And on the other side, we've got stage hypnosis, which in the UK is very much silliness. I'm wanting to develop something here in the middle, which is, you know, profound demonstrations of hypnosis that benefit the business and corporate community. But whenever you mention the word hypnosis to those people, it tends to turn them off in this country. Challenge for developing skits and routines. For me, it's sometimes I can be lazy with that, because I've developed my show and I kind of go, you know, to add something new can be a bit scary sometimes. But I use old British comedies such as Fawlty Towers, visual comedy as ideas. And very recently, and I've not done it yet, but Michael, if you're watching, it's an amazing routine. Michael Johns developed a skit for me, a routine, and he's wrote it and developed it. And it was interesting for me to have another hypnotist of Michael Johns' caliber write and develop a skit for me. And that was an interesting process. And so, that's another way of kind of looking at routines as well.
Yeah, great. No, because I haven't really done that. You know, it's interesting that you're looking for the middle part, because that has been the that is what I've been going for also. Because when I was applying for my the National Health Institute permission thing to do stage hypnosis, I dressed really formally, and there was the whole process of making me very legit. So they don't decline, sadly, in the Western world, like a man in a suit. However, that was also the market I was going after, because I knew if I went corporate, that would give high-paying gigs. It would be more interesting. There's a part of me that kind of loved the corporate world in a sense. So I was going for that, and I've watched a lot of Tony Robbins subs. I've also been wanting to craft something for that middle thing. I but there are many of requests that have come now, especially coming the holidays and also from corporate and after the pandemic, is like, we just want to have fun and enjoy and laugh. So, but then I've done a few things for like a leadership networks. I meet with like a few groups where there's like 20 leaders in each group, and they are like really keen on like, yeah, we laugh, yeah, but what's like the, in Sweden we say, we have the word matnyttigt, which like kind of food for thought.
Yes,
what can you teach us?
Yeah.
So those are more into the demonstration part.
Yeah.
It's still the same show, same structure, but it's like I take more time, as Natasha says, motivational. It's more taking the time to say, like, as you see with this person struggling to find their mouth, is have you noticed from your own business or own leadership that you have a sense of duality? You have two thoughts. I would love to go out and sell, but I'm afraid to be rejected. The conflict. Who has experienced that? Well, this is what you see right now. So I use that to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, and that's very much as inspired by Anthony Gailey.
Fantastic guy.
And he has really, he took it, he takes it to another level.
Yeah. And I love Anthony Gailey because he doesn't see himself as a stage hypnotist. He sees himself as a keynote first and foremost. But the way that he delivers stage hypnosis to that audience is so slick. He was one of the first guests that we had on this show, to be fair.
Cool.
I met him in Vegas a few years ago, and we've kind of, our paths have crossed a couple of times over the years. And he literally, I think he was the third guest that I approached, and he's like, yeah, absolutely love to do it. Such a great guy. And again, it's so smooth the way the suggestion is delivered. All of it is entertaining. All of it is very, very, you can consume it over and over, and it's great. But yeah, I love when you mentioned earlier about the not finding the shoe. When Anthony's done that, I think it's one of my favorite routines of his. And everybody loves him as well. The comments are coming in saying he's a great guy as well.
And also because that has been my challenge. I have Justin's show that it works. It has the beginning, middle, end. You have people do, and you can still work with a small group, and you have success with that. Then you have Mark Svarts, who bring a bunch of people up on stage, choose the people from your committee, and then really funny skits, but also the whole funny comebacks with it, with humor, and he does it perfectly. And then you have Anthony Gailey, which is very much of a more permissive way of finding the somnambulists and the people who are really visual, but then you have to work with a bigger group to get your committee of really good people. And so I've tried to mix these three things, and my basic structure is Justin's, and then I kind of add pinches of of the other ones into it. But I'd love to. It would be great to have a truly Gailey show. It would be great, but I don't really know how to do with this when I sometimes have like 20 people.
Yes, and that's it. And you kind of touched on it earlier, and you touched on it again then with kind of Justin stuff as well. It's so important for new hypnotists starting out to do the small venues, the dive bars, the small parties, the places where you've got, like you said, 20 people in the audience, and you've got to get a show out of them. It's so important to learn that and then build on it. If you just did somebody's training and it's all about numbers, then when you put in that situation when
Yeah.
you've not got those numbers, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Justin's training is phenomenal as well. If you know, if you want to do a show with one person, you can do a show with one person.
Yeah.
And it's good to build on that as well. And so I think there has to be, here in the UK, that's the progression. It was kind of like pubs and parties, working men's clubs, small theatres, and then you build up on your stages.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important, because if you rush to do the big stages without learning how to deal with the negative audiences, without dealing with the negative volunteers, then you can lose yourself very quickly. But they're the three main points, kind of Justin's way, Mark's way, Anthony's way, covers those three different styles of hypnosis.
I also have to say that I'm about 10 minutes I have to go, because we're about off the podcast. We didn't get to finish it.
Yes, very quickly though, if you were to recommend 2 books for people kind of wanting to develop their stage business, what would they be?
Well, I don't really read that much regarding the stage stuff. I'm really big on Richard Bandler's 2 latest books, just to get the understanding of, because that's where I am in that sense, that get a understanding on how the mind works. For the reason that during the pandemic, there were no shows. So I picked up my one-on-one business, and a little bit of the training as well. And I needed to learn to be better at that craft. So learning more about that has been, what I find is that regarding what has helped me is that I'm really active on LinkedIn, putting my videos out there, celebrating my wins there, because that's where my crowd hangs out. I've put a few things on Instagram, on TikTok, but it's on LinkedIn. And now I'm going to, for the first time, seriously, I brought in 2 people, one who's really good at Facebook ads and one who's really good at creating content, and they're working together to see, okay, how can I bring will that bring in business for me? And
I mean, the good thing with LinkedIn is, you can target the person that you want, the job title you want, in the company that you want, so you can really drill down on your kind of demographics, and LinkedIn's a great way for leads.
And especially for me, it has been more that I post a video, and if like the video that we're talking about, the hide and seek video, when people see that one, I usually tag a colleague that you would like to see hypnotized. And that's with the good videos, or the ones that I can create some kind of traction with, first having friends commenting on it. We're a group of friends who kind of like go past the system that you have to have. Then they tag, hey, this could be something for my Christmas party, and then you get a few leads. But I'm interested to see what will paid ads give me.
They can be, in my experience, they can be fantastic, and they can also be, when Facebook changes the algorithms, it can be a really quick way of spending money like that.
Oh yeah, and that's why I've said kind of like a limit. This is how much I will spend on ads. So
we had a question from Natasha earlier that I brushed over. Natasha asked, "Are you going to the 10-year anniversary at Hypno Thoughts next year?"
I haven't really actually thought about it yet. I haven't been to any of those things, but I believe it would be great to meet colleagues. But I think this is also a great way of, I had just to talk to colleagues. I had a film festival approach me and said, "Hey, would like to include hypnosis, prior to some screenings of our movies festival. What could you do?" They had an idea, and that made me reach out to people that I've trained with or that I know, to say, how, let's bounce out ideas and get them from there. And that is something that I'll probably get, now saying out loud that, if you're interested in bouncing ideas, I'm really open to it, because
fantastic. Let me just put up a link to your website there as well. That will bring up a link in the comment section to your website. So if people do want to ask you any questions and get in touch, then there we go. That's popped up. Brilliant. Yes, that is there. Fantastic. Yeah. So final kind of question. If you were to give yourself, the younger version of you, a tip, what would it be?
Good one. The main thing is that number one, find the people that go to training and learn from the best.
Yeah.
Second one is that hypnotize as many people as possible in any way. An advice from Justin was that if you meet someone, your first question will be, what do you do? And you ask that, and then you listen, sit back and listen, and wait till them they say, what do you do? And then you say hypnotize, and then you get a chance to hypnotize them because they're intrigued. And I believe the number one thing is trust the process. Trust the process, that eventually the gigs will come in. Eventually there will be people who will book you. Eventually the really bad shows will be few and far in between. So that's the thing. And I saw Natasha, who's our sidekick here.
She is. Natasha is. She's amazing. She's like the biggest advocate for hypnosis. She's embraced hypnosis completely, and she knows everybody in the hypnosis world now.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Jeff says, thanks, Grant, and psychic Natasha. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Erik, it's been an absolute pleasure. Nice to finally get a chance to talk to you as well.
Yes, great.
Let's
keep in touch, because I what will be, my next step is the thing where, like, okay, how do I improve? How do I get a higher success rate? Just I talked to a friend that I studied with there in Fraser, and there was something that he said, when speaking to him, it was just like, oh, in this 30-minute conversation, that little idea is something that I can bring in.
Yeah.
So,
brilliant.
So it's exchanging ideas. So
yes,
brilliant.
So, Erik, well, thank you very much for joining us. Guys, please do subscribe, follow, check out his website, share the love as well. If you are watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe as well. Every week we bring you an expert stage hypnosis performer. And from me and from Erik, thank you very much, and we shall see you soon. Cheers. Thank you very much, Erik.
Bye-bye. Thank you.